Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I would like to call the meeting to order. As a reminder, please note that the audit committee meeting is being recorded for the convenience of those unable to attend this meeting. Aday, can you please call roll?
Yes, John Manrick,
Present?
Frank Kuragala,
Present.
Alice Ho,
Present.
Tazeen Azad, Michelle Joseph, Karine Apollon,
Present.
Russell Bateman Buckley, and Sarita Scott, Anthony
Yeah, they're just alternates for me.
Anthony Giordano,
Present.
Shirley Orban.
Thank you, Aday. We have a quorum. First order of business, agenda item number 2, noting of the minutes of the audit committee of NYCBERS held on January 23rd, 2024. The minutes have been previously provided to the committee via the SharePoint site. May I have a motion to consider the minutes for the January 23rd committee meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Alex. Second? Lynn went first and Anthony with a second. Please raise your hand if you would vote to approve the minutes. Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is calendar item number 3, election of, we're doing that, am I up there yet? Or did I skip a page? So that's next, okay. Election of co-chair of the audit committee of NYCBERS. Can I have a motion to consider?
So moved.
Thank you, Corinne. Second? Second. Anthony, thank you so much. The chair will rotate annually. It should have knowledge of changing issues within the public sector, pension administration, enterprise risk management, internal controls, the nature of the internal audit environment, NYCBERS risk profile, and its business priorities. Are there any questions? Okay. Can I have a volunteer to be the audit committee chair?
I'll do it. Hey, let's Frank wants. Frank, you want it?
Sorry?
You want to be the?
Well, can Frank do it? Because we're essentially the same, he's my alternate, so we.
I think I'm the chair. I think I'm an alternate too.
Do I have to do it? I think there's something that I have to do.
Huh?
You're not an alternate, you're a member.
You're,
Yes.
you're just a member.
Huh?
Just a member?
Well, you're a member. You could be the chair.
You want to do it?
I don't think so.
Is it, it's not, what's 4 meetings?
What's my responsibility? What's
4
my
meetings a year.
responsibility?
A whole lot. I
Just sit here and read this. That's
But you only meeting once.
4 times a year. And we try and do it on the same day as other meetings, so you're already here.
Huh?
Tony, you guys want to flip a coin?
Tony, you can have it, Tony. I don't need
I
it.
got to use your gavel?
No, you don't. This is my game.
All right, I got to go. I'll do it.
Tony Giordano. Thank
I have
you.
to learn about audit.
All right, so we're gonna have to vote on it. All in favor of Tony Giordano serving as chair of the audit committee, please raise your hands.
Did not attend this time.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. So now, like, he's taking over?
Oh, now?
I was smart not to tell him that. Very smart.
Go ahead and take my goodies.
Nervous.
It's my pleasure to serve.
Thank you very much, John.
Oh, you're
It's a
welcome.
big seat to fill.
Look with that.
We're gonna be thick as thieves, you and me.
All right.
No pictures, John.
See?
Okay, where are we?
Yeah, right here. Next line.
Next item on the agenda is agenda item number 4, the executive director's update. Sandy, would you like to share any remarks? Keep it brief, please.
They're going to be very brief. I'm caught a bit flat-footed because I expected to do this at the board meeting today. But I will just note that we are engaged in audits across our agency, DFS, the controller, Grant Thornton. Aday and her team have managed it quite well. And, her staffing up has helped her a great deal.
I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of that. What did you just say? What happened in the beginning?
We're having no board meeting, so, I was gonna offer significant detail on our auto enrollment and other items,
Okay, I don't know.
but
Yeah,
that's sitting on my desk right now.
got it.
I'll
So-
send out an email about that to the board actually tonight.
Ms. Rich, Chair. Thank you, Sandy. The next item on the agenda is item number 5, the internal audit director's update.
Thank you. Right, so tonight I'm going to be sharing a presentation with the committee. And we're going to be covering the audits that were completed since the last audit committee meeting. I will provide an update on the status of open audit findings, and also give you an update on the audits that are currently ongoing. The first audit is the member self-security audit, and I have Sid here from the Baker Tilly team to help present the results of this audit. Sid?
Thank you, Ade. Hello, everyone. So like Ade mentioned, I'm Sid Patel. I'm a member, I'm part of the Baker Tilly kind of audit team that helped out with this, the MSS cybersecurity audit. Our objectives were to essentially assess the controls related to MSS user administration, to assess the controls related to the incident response and patching of the application, and to assess the transaction level validation and approvals of the application. And just for a little bit of background, MSS, the member self-service portal, is where members can view their account information and do a limited number of actions. The system is back-ended on the internal side by CPMS, which is accessed only by BERS employees. The overall system is developed and hosted by a third party called Vitech, which we'll be referring to throughout this kind of presentation a little bit. They have the bulk of responsibility as it comes to developing the system, monitoring it, and kind of providing updates and patches to it. Coming from this audit, we had a total of 8 findings. The 2 high findings we're going to focus on in the interest of time. The first one around inconsistent suspension of participant accounts for suspicious activities. This came from back up a little bit and start with the process. To test this, we examined any suspended accounts within the MSS portal or CPMS portal for participant accounts, and then ensured that they were adequately documented, the approvals for the suspensions were carried through, and like the individuals doing the suspension was accurate. We noted that there was 2 suspended accounts, one which was suspended appropriately, one which was suspended 7 months after it was flagged for fraudulent activity. Our recommendation coming from that was to establish a formal process for account suspension and with a set time frame, along with a designated individual or team member to investigate and suspend the account, along with ensuring that the participants are notified in writing that their account has been suspended. Management agreed with the recommendation and basically responded that they will establish a formalized process for that, standardized process for that, along with the appropriate checks and approvals within the system. The second high finding was the lack of an incident response plan. This finding stemmed from a little bit from the BERS internal side, along with the Vitech hosted or the Vitech responsible side of the system. We noted that there was no formal incident response plan for any issues that occur, cybersecurity issues that occur for or related to the MSS account or related to MSS system. Sorry. Management agreed with this finding. Also, they made a point to designate a distinction between what is hosted by Vitech and where the responsibility is, and then the BERS side, internal IT side of the system, or the environment used to access the system. And the response was essentially that they will establish a formal IRP along with updating the outdated plan that was issued from Cyber Command in 2021. I can pause there for any questions related to the two high findings.
So Vitech is ostensibly our cybersecurity entity?
No, they're the vendor that
Okay.
develops CPMS and MSS. And
Right.
also software.
Okay, so who's actually doing this cybersecurity? Oh, this is the audit, obviously.
Yeah, this
But,
is it.
okay,
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same thing. So what's the solution? Like, given what we've identified in the audit, what is the fix to ensure that that doesn't happen again, or to ensure we have the
do we
safety?
do
or-
penetration testing, do we do all that stuff that it's.
Well,
yeah.
pen testing is coming up in one of the findings, but as far as the solution, management agreed with the recommendations that were made. So the first one was to establish a formal process that will involve legal and IT to make sure that when there's a flag, the account is immediately suspended. And then for the second one, Sid, can you jump in on the second one? Management responded, I believe, that they will continue to review the sub-Q reports and update their IRP. Sid?
Correct. Yes, so that one covers both the MSS hosted system by Vitech and then also a little bit of the internal IT processes. And management said essentially they will establish a IRP or instant response plan to have a formal way of responding to or investigating and responding to any issues that stem from any account issues or fraudulent activity or whatever it may be, along with the already in place the continuity of operations plan, the COOP document, that is in its final stages of being drafted and finalized. Actually.
Once that plan is done, will that be shared with us?
You're out of order. The chair recognizes,
I'm sorry.
John.
So the question I have goes back to item number one. How much can you divulge into like what these users were doing? Can you tell us what they were doing?
I don't know that we got the information on why exactly they were flagged,
Okay,
but we do know that they were flagged for potential of fraudulent activity.
and do we know if they were actually like the user, or is it possible that their account their login was hacked and it was somebody else playing games? Because we had that issue during COVID.
Yep.
Sandy doesn't want to talk about it,
I've been having to talk about it, actually.
but
So,
it did happen.
yeah, some history. When we opened MSS, which allowed people to set up their accounts remotely, there were retirees who did not set up their accounts. There were criminal actors who were able to research the information about retirees. By the way, any retiree from New York City has their information published, what they're paid, who they are. So, and everyone's information is available on the dark web. Your social security number, your address, your name, where you work, everything's available. So these perpetrators were able to identify retirees who had not opened up MSS accounts. They opened them up. Over a period of months, they borrowed against those accounts.
So there was actual activity.
And very illegal activity. We caught them based on one member who said, wow, what happened to my balance? I owe money. Why? We caught them about 3 months into their criminal activity. We reported it to the New York City and FBI combined cybersecurity task force. There were about 100 involved accounts. We reported it out to the mayor's office, to all the other systems. They caught some individuals in other systems. We shut down automatic MSS enrollment. We mandated that anyone who wanted to open up an MSS account had to be present, to be individually identified by required ID and visual evaluation of who it is. They have to be present. And I can tell you that the perpetrators were brought to justice. They're in trial right now. We've supported it. We've recovered about 1/3 of the money because they didn't spend it fast enough. Hopefully they'll go to jail. We are
Domestic,
supporting the prosecution.
These were domestic,
There were two individuals who, I believe they both lived in Brooklyn.
I don't know.
Well, and
In the United States,
give-
anyway.
yeah, yeah. And well, to give you more color, we actually had one member who said, I know this address that took the loan out and went there. And we advised him not to do that. Isn't that right, Alex?
Sandy, what was the total loss?
I think Alex, net about 70,000 after recoveries?
I can give you that in one moment, please.
Yeah.
And was it, and who, is there insurance that covers that loss?
The city covered it. City covered it.
I'm surprised it's that low.
We caught it. Actually, it was, to be honest, it was lucky we caught it because if the member hadn't seen the change in their account and noticed us, and then we researched it, we wouldn't have noticed this for about a year when defaults on loans started accumulating.
When was this? Sandy?
This was 2 years ago?
Yeah, okay, so I have the information. This was in June and July of 2021. There were 94 accounts affected. The total amount in unauthorized loans was $1,653,890, of which $429,373 were recovered. So the loss to the system was $1,224,506 after recovery. We have asked the court for restitution to the extent that they've been able to recover other assets of the defendants. We'll see.
And so, but again, I asked the question, Alex, the members were made whole.
Yes.
Yes. The members were made whole as soon as we became aware of the issue and identified the impacted accounts.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And again, Vitech is essentially our.
They are
Service provider.
They are a service provider. They provide CPMS. So we are hosted on AWS cloud services.
Probably with all these acronyms, okay, I got it.
Yeah, Amazon will serve, yeah. Amazon Web Services.
And then Vitech is supporting all that. And
They are the developers of the software.
I would say that the most secure solution, given how much money and transactions are happening in this cohort, and how do we compare to the other funds and their membership security?
Well, so I can only speak to a couple of them. TRS hosts on their premises, police hosts on their premises, but uses Vitech. I would argue, and the other systems I believe also host on their premises, I would argue that they are far better than us in terms of cybersecurity and protecting the information and access to our data and software than we ever could be.
Why?
They're bigger, they're smarter, they spend a lot of money on that question, and we can't spend that much.
And why wouldn't we, why we leverage what they know and learn and pay some portion into it as part of the New York
We
City?
do, I mean, we
System.
paid in our contract, we pay them.
And they're using Vitech as well?
Well, Amazon Web Services is our contract, is the underlying contractor for our hosting.
He's used Vitech first. They were the first ones to use Vitech.
Were they?
Yeah.
This is actually.
I guess I'm wondering about, since you're saying we don't have the money to spend like they do,
That's right.
is there a way, I mean, we're one city, could we leverage what's
So,
being done in the bigger systems and pay a little bit less, get the same?
well, that's we might be able to pay less and have it on premises. However, there's, we had problems hiring a cybersecurity expert. I mean, it took us 2 years and we hired a very high quality person, but we can't pay $1 million a year to a cybersecurity expert. As AWS they can hire 100 of them.
The information you provided a second ago, was that just in relation to BERS? Or I thought we said that we also saw the same situation exist in the other pension plans?
All the information Alex offered was BERS specific.
Yes.
When we discovered this, we shared it with the other 4 systems, with the New York, with IT systems, cybersecurity, and everyone. And they had
Who were susceptible and felt
Individual.
afraid, the
Yep.
exact
they
same
found
situation.
issues.
So we actually helped them to a certain degree as well.
I think you could make that argument, yes.
So I don't
What's the
necessarily think
city
there's always a,
I mean, the city ultimately had to pay the
they have.
bill. Would
They
it make
self-
sense for the city to invest?
They self-insure for cyber risk. They self-insure.
It's gonna be an ongoing problem. Right?
Yeah.
That's
And
It's gonna be an ongoing problem.
We have looked at cyber insurance. And I believe the last time I talked to TRS, they had some, and they were reconsidering that contract because it was going up so much. And
And we would then teachers.
So I know a
Federal
little bit,
standard.
I know a little bit about this industry. One of the things about it is they sometimes do it per member. So like the way they calculate the premium, one way can be based on per member, right? So the population, if you think about a TRS or a NYCERS, the population's into the hundreds of thousands. So at some point, it becomes a question of cost. We don't have that much of a problem here, but at the same time, it would cost a lot of money by, to go down that road. I think you'd have to, and to procure the insurance, you have to get a broker anyway. So so AIG or any company you've heard of will not talk to you directly. They will only go through a broker. So you gotta do a procurement to hire a broker that would be able to negotiate, because the way that they'll sell the insurance is 3 or 4 carriers will take different individual tranches of this, and they'll build a tower. And the first level is going to take $10 million. The next one will take 5, 4. It's a complicated endeavor, so it gets to be very costly. So I think it's a broader board discussion than it is like an audit committee discussion, because it's a lot of money. But glad I'm not the audit chair. Let me just say that.
Yeah. And just so you understand how we operate within the city, we are actually operating within the confines of the DOE systems. So,
DOE was hacked and TRS was hacked.
yeah, no, but they didn't get any of our data on those hacks.
But they got
We are
TRS.
within the umbrella of the DOE protection, and then inside that, we have our own umbrella protection, and that is Amazon Web Services and Microsoft 365, and all the attendant protections from Microsoft
So
365.
we're utilizing the networks, we're utilizing their internal cybersecurity protections of those applications that we're utilizing.
Yes, and we maintain backups within that and backups externally. Yeah, it's very complicated because of our position at the DOE.
Is Cyber Command weighed in?
Well, we noticed them, they were involved when we noticed them on the MSS incident. There's an interesting relationship between Cyber Command and DOIT, which I don't understand.
I'm not gonna tell you I'm an expert.
Yeah. I don't.
Saying that, I understand exactly what you mean, but I don't know that. And I think everybody knows Cyber Command is the city's response, the city's broader initiative to combat this stuff that was created, I think, on the Bloomberg. I think it goes back that far.
I know it's complex, but it just seems a little scary that we don't have great security, cybersecurity, and we don't have insurance if something happens. So.
Well, the city's self-insured, but we don't have a cyber insurance policy here.
Like, it's a big,
Some of this-
in relation, though, do you know the number of?
Let's get hold of this guy.
Well, we are here, the next. So we're giving
All right, let's move on with the presentation.
You know what I mean? It's a weird dynamic.
There's obviously more that needs to be done here. This is going to be a continuing issue. Cybersecurity is important for all of us. Let's put a note of this and move on.
All right, so Sid, can we proceed?
Sid?
So the next few findings, there were out of the medium findings, there were 5 total medium findings. 2 of them relate to basically participant accounts. 1 relates to BERS employee accounts, and 2 relates to kind of more configuration or technical issues. The 2 that relate to participant accounts or member accounts, were findings 3 and 5. They were related to the documentation kept within the system for either changes or for new member registration. We noted that essentially there were some that were not, that changes or new registrations were not appropriately documented within the system, or the dates that the forms or actions took place do not match up to when the actual change was made.
Do we ascertain that these were illicit activities or mistakes?
These were
They were what?
these were process failures essentially. Management agreed with them, and for the first one related to changes, demographic changes, management agreed and essentially replied that they would establish a formal process along with triggers for the documentation of it and for a preparer and verifier level review of the imports and changes made in the accounts, which would be documented in the system. For finding number 5, which related to the new member registration, management replied that they would essentially the same thing with the formal level of preparer and verifier level approvals or documentation within the system for new account registrations. For finding number 4 related to internal security monitoring practices, this was a finding related to essentially the penetration testing and vulnerability scanning that BERS conducts over the MSS system or over the internal environment. For the actual MSS system, pen testing and all security monitoring is the responsibility of VITEC. The BERS IT team reviews the SOC 2 report on a regular basis, but there is no documentation of that, so management responsibility would essentially review it closer and along with having a documented review and approval of that SOC 2 report, and then they would establish a yearly pen test for the CPMS system.
Again, internally
Scheduled for July.
Now, given, based on auto enrollment, there's going to be much more activity, we're assuming?
There are a bunch of improvements to the system rolling out June 14th and 30th that will basically facilitate opt-outs and new payroll feeds. Yep, it's all coming. All coming.
Sid, anything else to add on this?
No, not for that finding. For finding number 6 was kind of the lack of a TPR or third-party risk management program. This is a internal BERS IT kind of finding, a related finding where there's no formal listing of vendors or third parties along with any kind of risk assessment process when they're first established. Management has replied that they would essentially review the SOC 2 reports of the vendors and will escalate this to kind of the risk management function of BERS for further discussion. Finding number 7 was the one related to internal to BERS employees and their accounts. We found that 2 employees inappropriately retained elevated privileges within CPMS after they either had left the organization or had changed roles where they no longer needed that level of access. One of the employees had retired and the other had just changed roles and responsibility. Management agreed with these findings and essentially removed their access. There was also a secondary level of control here that they needed to be logged into the BERS network to access CPMS, which reduced the risk of the terminated employee having access.
Right, so those 2 employees did not maintain access to our network, right? So they couldn't have gotten a CPMS.
Right. One employee did. There was still an employee of the BERS network.
To the network? Okay. Thank you.
And then the last finding that we noted was the lack of formal governance policy and procedure documentation. This is largely a documentation-based finding. in that there was either a lack of the level of detail or just a lack of the overall policy or procedure document related to some of the actions taken by employees. And management agreed with that and said they would essentially review the existing procedures and establish formal policy and processes.
Any questions, anything to add?
Oh, no, nothing to add. I think Sid covered everything. Are there any questions before we move on to the next one?
Our resources, so when you have a remediation target date, and let's say you change, let's say 7 down to a low, are resources readjusted so that you can put them to a more higher priority? Asking.
I don't know if we have an official policy about that. I'd say we knock these off as fast as we can. To that point though, I mean, we have an RFP out for identification services, which would support our MSS enrollment. We have a cybersecurity individual who we've just recently staffed with an assistant. And, we're prioritizing this information. We have backups that are controlled by DOE as well as AWS backups. And on Vitech, we probably have a system rollout probably on average every 10 days because we're constantly making improvements, and they do penetration testing before any of those rollouts, which is why it's a SOC 2 evaluation as opposed to a penetration test from us. We do a penetration test independent of our providers once yearly, and the plan is to do it quarterly.
Last question.
Well, although that plan is subject to some negotiation with Vitech because they have some problems with it. Yes.
Question for you about BERS, but also about any of the other system. You guys don't do any kind of statements that go to the individuals in any way. So if you're here for 10, 12 years, 15 years.
Well, they have access to real-time information, which is about 24 hours lagged.
Which is the MSS.
MSS.
So
And
if
they
you're
can
not set up
request a
MSS,
statement,
if
and they
you're
can
not-
request a statement in support of, let's say, a mortgage application.
but if you're not in it, like I would say, what percentage of people are actually even signed into MSS?
Don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
We can
Because
find out.
The reason why I raise that is because what I've heard, any kind of reconciliation takes forever. And the fact that you don't get a statement, I'll be the first to say I haven't signed up and I have no idea what happened in the thing. I'm just doing it. If something goes awry, I wouldn't even know what to ask for. And I get the sense that that's most people, because when you leave, it takes like a year or something to reconcile and give you, if you can buy whatever you can buy back, whatever, it takes a long time. So I guess my question would be, being proactive, would it help if there was a system that provided statements, whether it's on a quarterly basis, annual basis, something?
We have pushed very hard to eliminate paper current. I mean,
No, I'm not-
it's
no, it doesn't have to be
an
paper.
institutional drive.
No, it doesn't have to be paper. I mean, I get my statement, my fidelity statements don't come paper, they come electronic.
I'll tell you what's really interesting, like just from the population of the 5 systems. As people get closer to retirement is when they start unless you're a firefighter, to be fair. Unless you're a firefighter, you don't start even thinking about the fact that you have the money there
That's what I'm saying.
until you get to a certain
Yes,
point.
I agree
So
with you.
so it really is more of a unique population. And I think to your point, it'd be interesting if we could, at some point, Sandy, I'm not saying tomorrow, but at some point, identify those people that are 5 years out. And maybe those are the ones that get a little bit more of an email that says, hey, here's your statement. Because I think the 25-year-old that's working in DOE isn't thinking about the
That's
day
true.
that they retire.
That's true.
But the person who's 55 sees it around the
Yeah.
corner and goes,
Yeah.
hey,
It's that,
maybe it's a birthday, 55, here's a statement, you got money here.
it's just that offboarding process seems very, very complicated
Yeah.
and convoluted and long, because while they're not looking, seems like we're not looking either.
Yeah.
Right? So is there a way to?
We actually do look. That's part of the Grant Thornton audit. I mean, they sample the payroll information coming from, whatever the hell what do they call the payroll system now? PMS or whatever.
File.
Yeah, we monitor the PSEP file and we have our data analytics team who tracks that. So, I mean, there's someone looking at it. It's just, as an individual, it's kind of up to you to monitor. I mean, it's in, any deductions are in your payroll stub, that's online. Yeah, I'd say, paper is going away. We don't even, we're trying to avoid accepting mail now.
No, everything I'm talking about is
Yeah,
on
Alex,
paper.
you want-
Everything I'm talking
Yeah,
about can be
hi,
electronic.
excuse me. BERS sends out statements to all members in June and June and December. This is in fact the contract that you just approved. That is our printer that we use to send out these statements.
I have not received this statement once. And neither has Karen. So there's something wrong with that. You have?
I
No.
receive them.
I've never received one.
The newsletter.
I do.
I know they do some filtering before they send them out, but I mean, you should,
I've
there's no
never
reason
seen
why you
anything from BERS. I have never.
so
seen
we
it.
have to note that.
Well, you should check, you should check the records of the payroll system, whether they have your address correctly, because that's.
Yeah, I get stuff from DOE.
Corinne, can you just shoot me an email? I'll make sure that your statement is being sent to the right address.
And then the other question I was gonna say is, and then I asked the question, why would we be doing it snail mail? Why isn't it electronic? Right, because I think to your point, Sandy, we should be away
We
from
don't
paper.
have emails for everyone.
A lot of our members work in the kitchen, do
Yep,
not
that makes
use
sense.
their email addresses.
That part was changing though.
The
That's-
DOE issues email addresses which are not used.
It's the Ray Orlando argument.
Yeah, and so I think, yes, I think, it's the same as opting in, right? You can opt in for electronic, because I would tell you electronic all day. I don't like mail at all. Because that opens it up to greater fraud, right? Anybody can get that piece of mail. You know, so that's just food for thought.
So do we have to take action on this report?
No. So we're gonna move on real quick, but I have a question for Corinne. So I wanted to confirm that you'd like for us to send you a copy of the COOP plan once it's updated, the continuity of operations plan.
Oh, I think if we're gonna do an audit and we're gonna hear what's missing or what needs to be improved upon, I think it's only natural to say, given, what we've gotten, here's the results of the risks that were raised. Right? I don't know about anybody else, but for me, that closes the
I
loop.
thought you were referring to the actual document. First.
She was,
Okay.
she said she wants to fly the coop out of here. You sure you don't want it?
No, I'm just thinking.
She wants to read it, tell her, only an email.
Here's all the things that we've done for the management, for me, that's it. I don't need to. I ain't
When
gonna
we
read anything.
when you update, you.
You want it, but only an email.
This
I don't want to use it.
this is a good food for thought, and,
Alright.
there's vulnerabilities, it's gonna continue, right? this is a growing area, all aspects of life. So we need to stay on top of it. Good report. Thanks, Sid.
Thank you, Sid.
Thank you, Sid.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, so the second audit is the participant account adjustment audit. And Woody is here also from Baker Tilly to present the results of this audit. Woody?
Great. Hello, Aday. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Just like Aday mentioned, my name's Woody Battle. I'm a senior consultant with our team here, Baker Tilly, and I've assisted Aday with multiple audits, including this participant accounts adjustments audit. So I'll be walking through our findings. First, I'm going to give you some background on what we're really discussing when we're referring to the adjustment process. So for some background, participant account adjustments are manual transactions made to accounts of participants to correct for anomalies. And so these can be a failure to post or an incorrect posting to a member's account. Adjustments are also made for processing errors, data errors, manual transactions not covered by existing processes, really just changes that need to be manually made to a member's account is what we're talking about. The Quality Assurance Management Department is responsible for processing participant account adjustments, and they have a team of around 9 employees supporting the adjustments process, including the director and their 2 deputy directors. There are 2 primary categories of participant account adjustments. We like to think of them as one, these routine cash account related adjustments, which are coming from payroll transactions, such as pension contributions and TDA contributions that have failed to post or have posted incorrectly to a member's respective account. And then the other type of participant account adjustments we identified are really these ad hoc adjustment requests that are coming from other departments to quality assurance management. And those can be when a refund is being issued by operations and there's an anomaly noted, they'll make a request to quality assurance management to perform a participant account adjustment. So that's really what we're talking about here in this audit. We identified 4 findings over the course of the audit, 2 of which were high priority or high risk, 2 were medium priority and risk. We also have recommendations associated with each, and then I can talk about the management action plans associated with these. Jumping into finding number 1, this is regarding the separation of duties around participant account adjustments, which we found is lacking. There were really 2 elements to this finding. One individual can single-handedly process an adjustment without any system controls or secondary review. So we noted that among the individuals that are performing these participant account adjustments, there isn't system prevention from allowing the same individual who received the request to process the request and post the request for that adjustment to a member's account. We felt that that's a high priority. The deputy director is occasionally reviewing these adjustments for accuracy, but the review isn't always documented and can be inconsistent. There's a number of these requests that are coming through as well. So regarding this finding, we noted that from a recommendation standpoint, implementing a formal review process that requires a sign-off, an actual sign-off from someone who is separate and apart from the participant account adjustment process, and it is initiating that adjustment. So if you're initiating the adjustment, we want to add a layer of review to prevent you from also being able to post it. We also recommended a threshold for supervisors and managerial review that would be set for this finding, and this would allow that not every adjustment requires the same priority of review. We're really mainly because of time and just resource allocation. We're really focusing on those that breach this threshold to say beyond this point, we recommend that there be an additional layer of review. Management agreed with this recommendation and they agreed with the finding. And within the action plan, they agreed to set essentially a $5,000 adjustment limit or threshold, if you will, that any adjustments beyond that threshold will require an additional review to be met before posting to the member's account. So that's the first finding that we noted, a separation of duties. And I can dive into the second one, still within the high priority realm. This one is discussing instances of data entry errors or inadequate supporting documentation. We gathered a number of, essentially all of the participant accounts, all of the adjustments that had been performed. We sampled a number of these based off of the level of risk associated with the accounts or the adjustments. And within those, we noted 2 instances of error, of human error. And what we found were as follows. So essentially one sample of ours, we noted that there was a $260,000 adjustment that was erroneously processed at a $2.6 million amount. The error was identified and corrected soon after processing. Another instance, there was a $1,843.06 adjustment, which was erroneously processed at $184,306. So you can see in both of these instances, there's a digital, and I mean that literally, there's a digit error where you're just moving the period over a few digits, and then you can see how that error is pretty much accruing. In that sense, the error was identified and then corrected, but in this instance, there was some time that had elapsed before that error was corrected. Additionally, for these 2, we just noted that there wasn't a lot of supporting documentation for these adjustments, in which case we weren't able to dive into too much detail around what actually occurred for the reason of these. The second of the two, the 1,800 amount, was a reoccurring pension contribution that was just processed for that incorrect amount. The first item was more of an ad hoc adjustment request. So those are our two high priority findings. I'll pause there for any questions.
Any questions? Keep going then.
Okay. Thank you. And I did neglect to mention what our recommendation was for number 2. We just recommended implementing a series of system controls within CPMS that'll flag a user or a participant account adjuster within the quality assurance management department to do a double check of the amount that they're attempting to post prior to submitting it. And we believe in both of these instances, that type of system flag would have likely prevented that both of those from actually posting to the member's account, and management agreed with this recommendation. So that would be a CPMS system control.
This is YTech.
Correct.
Improvement.
Software change.
Improvement ticket.
Yep.
Okay. 2 other findings associated with participant account adjustments are the tracking of the actual adjustment life cycle. During the audit period of about 2 years, between 2021 and 2023 October, I believe, over 16,700 adjustments were performed, in the amount of around $9.5 million worth of adjustments. With this number of adjustments being performed, we just weren't able to see a sufficient tracking process that captured the current state of adjustments that have been requested, or that adjustments that needed to still be performed for those 2 primary participant account adjustment categories. So for both reoccurring routine adjustments and for ad hoc requests that come into quality assurance, we recommend there be a tracking mechanism to know at any given time what outstanding adjustments are being performed and what still needs to be accomplished. Additionally, the amount of time that it's taking for any of these adjustments. We think there'll also be kind of data insight benefits from this type of tracking mechanism. You can also capture the approvals and the amounts for better data insight into the adjustments process. In this instance, we recommended just what I mentioned, a tracking mechanism. Management agreed with this and is creating a new tracker to cover requests and other adjustments. They're discussing this with IT. They're discussing with the operations department as well, since most of those ad hoc requests are coming from the operations department. So it's a collaborative approach to that recommendation for finding number 3. And then lastly, we had finding number 4, another medium finding. This is unique to CPMS, display issues with adjustment comments and data hygiene. Essentially, there are a primary control in the participant account adjustments process is the inability to post an adjustment if a comment hasn't been made in CPMS by the adjuster to indicate the reason for the adjustment, who was performing the adjustment, etc. So that comment feature is pretty essential to this process. We just noted some irregularity in that comment feature, and because it's of such importance for this process, we wanted to make that known in this medium level finding. Adjustments comments are used as a key control. The comment feature is not functioning as intended. So for instance, we requested a data query and some comments aren't coming through in that data query, whereas others are. But we were able to query the system to gather all of the comments eventually, but the ease of being able to see all comments as readily as you're seeing other data for participant accounts is what's needed, considering the importance of the comment feature. The comments entered by processors also had some irregularity for just topographical decisions. So the same reason for an adjustment being spelled multiple ways or described in different fashions. For this finding, we recommended a drop-down list for CPMS to more cleanly and accurately capture the reasons that adjustments are being performed, so there's uniformity in the system, and reconciling the reason that comments aren't pulling as easily when querying the system. So management again agreed with this finding, and we noted that this would be a fairly easy update to introduce, as the remediation target is within July of this year.
And if new reasons, new potential drop downs come, will the users be able to add additional drop down targets, or will that be a system change?
Well, they would have to go to write it.
So basically what's called we know what the issues would be in terms of the drop down, creating that drop down menu.
Yeah, so they know what the common reasons are, so they'll create a list of that, and then we suggested they add like an other option that allows the
Okay.
users.
Right. Any other questions, anyone?
Okay, thank you so much, Woody.
All right.
Thanks, Woody.
Thank you all. Take care.
All right, so up next is just to give you an update on the audits that are currently ongoing. There's 8 of them that are currently ongoing. 3 are internal and 5 are external. The first of the internal is the 5-year out audit that we're currently working on, the enrollment audit and the debt benefits audit. For the 5-year out, we're looking at the processes by which those accounts are managed, looking at the accuracy of the disbursements and compliance with regulations that apply. And we're in the field work phase of that audit. And then for the enrollment audit, we are looking at the accuracy and effectiveness of the processes by which members are deemed eligible to join BERS, and the process by which they are actually enrolled as BERS members, also currently in field work for that audit. And then the third one is the debt benefits audit. So we're looking at QPP, pre-retirement and post-retirement debt benefits. And we're also looking at TDA debt benefits. We actually just moved into field work on that audit. And then we have 5 external audits. The first one is by the New York City Controller's Office. This is the audit that they kicked off in January of 2023. They're reviewing BERS's financial and operating practices, and along with the board governance. We have a recent update. We actually just received the preliminary conclusions from the Office of the Controller on that audit. And the exit conference is scheduled for June 6th.
Is it perfect? Everything's great.
Yeah.
Understood.
And then we are still in the reporting phase of the DFS audit. This was the audit for fiscal years 2013 through 2018. We have the draft report. We've submitted responses. We had 2 exit conference meetings, and we're waiting to hear back from DFS on that. The third is the administrative review by Milliman. No update on that one. We're still waiting on part 2 of the report. And the fourth is a new audit that was kicked off in February by the EEPC, Equal Employment Practices Commission. That audit is still in the beginning stages as far as we're aware. They sent us a questionnaire which was responded to. And then lastly, the fiscal year audit, which is conducted every year, apologies. The auditor is Grant Thornton, and that was kicked off last week as well.
Quite a bit on your plate.
So going on.
Can I ask a question about the death benefits audit? We've implemented a new death match process about 2 months ago. Was it 2 months ago? So will it cover the transition or the new process, or look at the old?
Peripherally, because we're looking here at the actual benefits calculations and things like that.
Oh, okay. All right.
We probably will look more into that in the pension payroll audit.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, so, sorry. So this is just an update on the status of outstanding audit findings. So the chart on the left just shows the status since the last audit committee meeting. So 4 findings were recently closed, and we still have 49 that are open. And then the chart on the bottom shows you the remediation status. So when you look at the high risk findings, around half are closed, while around half are open. And for the medium, a little bit more, around 60% are closed, while 37% are still open. And just to give some high level detail on findings that were actually closed since the last audit committee meeting. The first one has to do with how salary changes are processed. So this was a finding related to the absence of written documentation for a change to a salary that had been previously approved in writing. So going forward, no changes will be processed unless there's written documentation, usually in the form of email, and the email will be saved to the employee file. So as evidence that this change was implemented, I did view 2 recent changes. The email thread was shared with me, and so that finding was closed as a result. The second one has to do with the monthly disbursement process. So this was an audit that kind of pointed out that the 1099 process was lacking some ownership and accountability, if you will. So the ops team has established a monthly disbursement process that involves a few other teams. It includes data analytics, it includes the former Bitech team now known as BISM and operations. So they get a report every month after the disbursement, and any discrepancies that they identify are addressed. Sometimes it requires a data fix in CPMS, sometimes it's a data fix in PPMS. Third one had to do with RMDs, required minimum distributions. So the finding was that this was from a TDA audit, and members who were taking RMDs didn't have forms on file. And NYCBERS had not reached out to ensure that those forms were completed. So after the finding, they implemented a process where they sent out a mass outreach to members. I believe the letters were sent out in March. I reviewed 5 of those instances, and all cases had letters. And I believe 2 or 3 of those members actually returned completed forms. So it was based on the letters that they were sent.
What percentage was that? Came back?
Almost half. I want to say 2 or 3.
That's great. That's great.
We are required to have a form. I thought RMDs were automatic.
So due to the fact that we are dispersing payments, and sometimes the payments are over a certain amount, so we want to have that documentation on file, and also the confirmation that the member actually signed off.
Signed off on what?
On the
Yeah.
distribution.
On
Yeah,
the location the money goes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah,
sometimes it could be going to.
yeah. So Sandy, we only ask for this once per member, once per member. And if they don't respond, we still issue the RMD.
Right,
But,
it goes to where the retirement check goes, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, it's not like they're not getting their RMDs.
Oh, yes.
I mean, it's going to the retirement check location, either by EFT or by check.
Yes.
So, okay, I just want to
Point
clarify
of
that.
initiation for that first RMD,
Yeah,
there's
it
a
sounds like
packet
a-
that they complete.
Sounds like a form in need of a reason, but no reason. Yeah.
If someone hacked your account, you get that letter and say, wow, I'm getting money. That's
Yeah, that's a good point.
closing the loop.
Good point.
All right, so this slide just gives some detail on the high-risk findings that are still open and where they fall within the organization. Sorry, I can see that far.
So what do we anticipate scheduling outstanding?
Well, the completion dates will be on the next slide. So around almost half of the findings are spread between the benefits area, compliance, and IT. And then around 20-something% are between fiscal ops and information technology. But just delving a little bit into the actual findings, The first one has to do with CPMS data reliability. So this was a finding that pointed out that the staff were having trouble with processing. I believe this was for TDA refunds. There was the data issues, known data issues within the system, so we flagged that. Residual balances, so when refunds are dispersed, the accounts aren't always zeroed out as they are expected to be. So we flagged that, and I believe there's an improvement ticket that was submitted to have Vitech rectify that.
But what do they just go to New York State,
No, they can't.
catch-all?
They can't take it. You can't.
States.
I mean, sometimes it's pennies, sometimes it's a little bit more. So they usually will have to do like a manual research before the either refund or just wipe out the balance. We also noted that there was no segregation of duties when it came to manual refunds, so that's still open. Overtime approvals and overtime policy. So the overtime policy, the employee handbook are all in the process of being reviewed and updated. So that's still working. Travel and conference expenses, that was an audit that was conducted in 2022. There's been a delay in implementing that because staffing issues. So the person who was hired for that role left BERS, the position was vacant for a while. And then a new department was set up that's now handling that. It was staffed, and then they're actively working on drafting multiple documents and forms for those processes. And then the next one has to do with the investment of the variable annuity fund. We still do not have a contract in place. There's an action item for that that's being worked on.
It's in conjunction with TRS.
With TRS. The financial reporting process is still largely manual. I know that there was testing, QAT testing being done on some of those reports. And, you know, they've encountered delays, but I do know that they're still working, trying to get those reports up and running.
Yeah, some of that delay was because we prioritized the Roth conversion for the benefit of members.
TDA thing, why wouldn't the law department just be able to do it as counsel to both entities?
GDA thing?
I mean, if there's something,
So,
if there's an agreement.
no, there isn't one. So the legislation requires an agreement, and there is no contract between TRS and BERS on that question. And TRS has generally stiff-armed us when we've talked about that. And then when we examined an RFP to consider replacing TRS, which, you know, maybe would happen or maybe not, we ran into the issue that the terms and conditions of the TDA are non-market, and that causes a significant problem with potential contractors. And two, there is some disagreement between TRS and BERS on balances, which has not yet been clarified.
Wouldn't the law department as counsel to both, and as the mayor's counsel, and the mayor has 10 seats on this board, and 1 seat on the TRS board, wouldn't they be in the better position to determine whether or not that's an appropriate action? rather than-
Do we want to
rather
go
than
to attorney-client?
No, not for this meeting. I mean, it's just,
Okay,
not for this
because
meeting. It just
I don't
seems
think
more like it's.
this part of the conversation should be happening in public session.
No, that's,
This is a public session, man.
that's fine. I'll save it for another day. I mean, I just don't know why we're.
There's obviously more work, there's obviously more that needs to be done.
Yeah, obviously, but I'm just saying, like, you know.
All right, so procurement framework is being developed by the new procurement team. Lots of drafting of documents and forms and processes that was recommended. SCP and arrears cleanup is a project that the Ops department has prioritized. And then IT is working also on privileged access management and their off-site backup.
The procurement stuff, Sandy, I'd love to be engaged in that a little bit with the team to see where I can help.
Which, I'm sorry, with?
The procurement framework stuff.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
'cause I've gotten a real lesson in the last 2 years. I know it better than I
Yeah,
ever wanted to know
Sharon,
it.
I'm sure Sharon would welcome it.
Curious to see about that.
I'll let Sean know. Last slide of the day, this just gives an update on the timeline for remediation for some of those high-risk findings. I mean, the target moves usually when I get updates, so.
2035?
So some of those that are dated January 28th, it just depends on how the issues and tickets with CPMS have been prioritized. And hopefully, those targets will stay the same, or, action will be completed sooner.
I have all the faith.
And we do prioritize those items which impact the members, right? And, issues of performance and data reliability, those impact the members, but we have a specific department that's focused on that.
Well, I've always, with this committee, I've always liked that there was so much transparency here. And even showing the bad spots, you've always showed the bad spots and worked on it. And I think that's commendable for the day you're working, Sandy and Daniel. And so happy to be part of this. One question I have, and I don't know if maybe it's not within the purview of this, but this Article 6 that locks down, I understand we're the only board that is subject to Article 6.
Directive 6?
Directive 6, yes.
I don't know
Is that part of
that's
the Trump, this
true. The only board that.
Can we,
Are you
so
talking about the travel budget?
Yeah.
No.
Alex.
I think to my knowledge, everybody more or less follows it.
It's absolutely not true. I can tell you right away, firefighters informed me today, they opted out of it.
No, they did not,
There is
well,
this-
they did not opt out of Directive 6 as an agency. If they did, they will not that will not have happened. I can tell you that they have not opted out of Directive 6. They're covered under the Directive 6. The 2-conference rule is
I think
in there for a
there
reason.
might there might be a very specific thing that Tony is thinking of. I don't know whether
I'll tell you for a fact that Greg Faulkner was at a lunch with a consultant of multiple funds. Greg was the only one that was not able to be paid for lunch.
that's
because-
probably not a Directive 6 issue, though.
That was what was cited as.
No,
Yeah, it might not be a Directive 6
That has
issue.
nothing to do with Directive 6.
There is something different that let's come back.
No, what's the question? I mean, we should ask. We're here. What's the question?
Axia was made aware that we, as trustees, BERS trustees, were subject to Directive 6, and they were not able to pay for Greg's lunch. Other trustees from 3 other funds were there, and they were able to be paid for.
That's
So
not
Directive
that's not
6
Directive 6.
That's what
Directive
we're saying.
6
No.
wouldn't
That is a
control that.
resolution passed by this board,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, about, that has to do with contact with outside managers. Didn't we adopt it here? I know 2 of the other systems that you're on teachers board, they adopted it, where they have to report they have to report in who they met with.
Teachers were not at that meeting.
So Directive 6, it simply discusses when the agencies can reimburse
Yeah.
staff and trustees. This doesn't sound like a case of reimbursement.
Directive
I
6.
can't speak for Axia. I'm not
Might
sure
be.
exactly what they were thinking. But this sounds like there might have been some kind of conflict of interest concern. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because
And
Greg is not representing he's representing a city elected, correct? No. Or you
Oh, yeah,
represent,
he was here.
or the CEC, right? You're not representing the labor union.
But Tony's correct. That's what they quoted to me. At the end of the meal, they said, by the way, according to this directive, we're not allowed to, which was fine, but that he's actually correct.
Yeah, Directive 6 has nothing to do with vendors paying for something. Directive
They may
6
be
is
mistaken.
about Directive 6 is about the agencies reimbursing staff. I wonder though whether I really would have to speculate as to what Axia was thinking when they said that.
Well,
Because
it was brought
that's
up again
not what
today.
Directive 6 is.
It was brought up again today because there was a table at Twego, they had a table at Twego, and they didn't invite BERS trustees to sit at their table because of the directive. So maybe we need to have a conversation.
Well,
with
that,
Axia.
I mean, well, actually he's leaving, so I mean, we can have every conversation we want, but.
But I mean, just to get to the ferret, to get to the, so we don't replicate this in the future.
Yeah, I don't think it's, I don't believe it's Directive 6 related at all. I mean, I can tell you that, the posture is labor trustees can function as a labor member, which is slightly different than those of us that are functioning purely as a political.
definition.
Let's get more information or revisit it. Let's not take up more time here.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
So we're on.
Putting this thing.
Okay, so that concludes the agenda for this meeting. The next meeting of the Audit Committee of BERS Board of Trustees will be scheduled for the third quarter of 2024 and communicated to all committee members and invitees, including the controller's reps. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
John Matarich, second.
Second.
Second, Alice. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? We stand adjourned. Folks, thank you very much.
Have a good afternoon, everyone.